I walked up to my house and found absolute mayhem unfolding on my private lake. My dock, the one I had painstakingly built by hand, had been taken over by a giant speaker blasting club music at full volume. A swarm of inflatable flamingos drifted across the water, each carrying some overly bronzed suburbanite, sipping on a gaudy cocktail in an even more ridiculous cup. Kids were launching themselves into the water, sending waves crashing onto the shore. And there, sprawled out like she owned the place, reclining on one of my deck chairs, was Karen. She spotted me, nudged her sunglasses up and grinned. "Oh, hey there, just in time for the party." My fingers twitched. My pulse spiked. This lake, my refuge, my one escape from the insanity of the world, had been turned into a full-blown carnival. My no trespassing signs weren't there for decoration. They were rules. And Karen, she had just declared war. It wasn't like I hadn't seen this coming. Karen had always been a problem, a self-important suburban queen bee who acted like the whole neighborhood was her personal fiefdom. She was the self-appointed president of an HOA that didn't even exist, the type to lodge complaints about seasonal wreaths that didn't fit her aesthetic. If a kid's soccer ball so much as rolled onto her lawn, she'd pen a furious 10-paragraph tirade on the neighborhood Facebook group. And now apparently she had decided my lake, my private property, was her new community pool. I took a breath, stepped forward, and planted my feet at the water's edge. "Karen, what the hell is this?" She took another sip of her drink, completely unfazed by my obvious fury. "Oh, don't be so uptight. It's just water. What's a little fun gonna hurt?" "A little fun?" I echoed, stunned. I gestured wildly at the chaos in front of me. "This is a full-on festival. Who even told you this was okay?" She waved a hand, dismissing me like I was being dramatic. "It's a lake. It's for everyone." "No," I shot back. "It's my lake. Private property." She rolled her eyes, exasperated. "Oh, don't be so dramatic. You're not even using it." My jaw clenched so hard I thought my teeth might crack. "I use it every single day." "Well, now we're using it too," she said with a breezy shrug, as if that settled things. "So just grab a drink and chill." Relax? She wanted me to relax while beer bottles floated in my water, while some teenager used my kayak as a diving board, while a crowd of strangers trampled my land. Relax? A loud splash yanked my attention back to the water. One of Karen's guests had just attempted an Olympic-level dive off my dock, except he miscalculated and hit the water with a brutal belly flop that made the whole crowd wince. He came up coughing and laughing. "Dude, this place is sick. We should do this every weekend." I turned back to Karen, who smirked. That smirk sealed her fate. I wasn't a violent man. I wasn't someone who sought revenge over minor inconveniences. But I did believe in justice, and Karen had crossed the line. She had challenged my authority over what was mine, and I had the perfect response. "Fine," I said, keeping my face neutral. "Enjoy your party." Her smirk widened. "Glad you're finally being reasonable." "Oh, Karen, you have no idea." I turned on my heel and headed toward the small shed near the shore. Inside, behind a locked gate, resided the most ruthless, untamed force of nature known to man. A nightmare so fierce, even seasoned outdoorsmen steered clear. Geese, not just any geese, my geese. A horde of hyper-territorial, mean-spirited, aggressively feral waterfowl that feared nothing, respected no one, and they recognized only one enemy: trespassers. I had raised them from the moment they hatched, conditioned them to see my land as sacred, to defend it at all costs. They were my guardians, my soldiers, and today they would go to war. I unlatched the gate and took a step back. Nearly 20 geese lifted their heads in unison, sensing the shift in energy. Their sharp eyes locked onto me, waiting for the signal. I pointed toward the water. Go! The reaction was immediate. A deafening blast of honks erupted as the geese launched like feathered missiles, barreling toward the lake with laser-focused determination. Their webbed feet smacked against the ground, wings spread wide like banners of an advancing army. The first wave of destruction struck the moment they hit the water. One particularly bold goose grabbed a floating beer can, flinging it skyward with a violent shake of its head. Another zeroed in on an inflatable flamingo, jabbing its beak straight through the plastic, sending it hissing into oblivion. Then they turned their sights on the people. Screams filled the air as the geese swarmed Karen's guests with the ferocity of a cavalry charge. One guy swung wildly in self-defense, only to have a massive goose launch itself at his face, wings flapping, honks of righteous fury echoing across the water. A woman bolted toward the dock, but a goose cut her off, snapping at her ankles with ruthless precision. Then came the final blow, the speaker. A goose leapt onto it, knocking it over and sending it toppling into the lake. The music cut out instantly, replaced by chaos, shouts, splashes, pure, unfiltered panic. Karen, still lounging on the dock, stared in horror. What the hell? Are those geese? I folded my arms, watching the carnage unfold with a smirk. Hope you like birds. Total pandemonium. People tripped over themselves trying to escape, slipping on the dock, scrambling to the shore. The once lively party had become a battlefield. The geese showed no mercy. One of Karen's friends, a guy in obnoxiously bright swim trunks, shouted, "Run! They're organized!" Karen, now drenched and looking like she'd been through a war zone, whirled on me, fire in her eyes. You think this is funny? I barely kept a straight face. Oh, lighten up. It's just birds. She let out a noise that was somewhere between a shriek and a growl before taking off toward the shore, geese hot on her heels. I stood there savoring the sight of my once peaceful lake being rightfully reclaimed. When the last of the uninvited guests disappeared down the road, I exhaled slowly. The geese, victorious, let out a final chorus of honks before returning to their side of the lake, satisfied with their conquest. My lake was mine again. Karen had made a fatal mistake, assuming I'd just let her do whatever she wanted, that I'd back down. But she forgot one crucial thing. This was my land, my rules, and anyone who dared to challenge that, well, the geese were always looking for a fight. Karen showed up the next morning, still fuming. Her screechy voice sliced through the peaceful morning air like nails on a chalkboard. I was on the porch sipping my coffee, thoroughly enjoying the aftermath of my strategic retaliation, when I spotted her stomping up my driveway like a woman on a mission. She was still wearing the remnants of her once glamorous party outfit, now wrinkled and stained, her pricey sunglasses perched crookedly on her head. Her expression was a volatile mix of fury, embarrassment, and pure stubbornness. "You think you're funny?" she spat, face flushed with rage. "Unleashing those demons on me? I could have been seriously hurt. My guests could have been injured." I took another slow sip of coffee, dragging out the moment. "But you weren't," I said smoothly, feigning innocence. "You and your friends trespassed. The geese were just defending their home." Karen's eyes nearly popped out of her head. defending their home. They chased me down the street. One of them bit me. She thrust out her arm, showing a faint red mark that looked more like a mild scratch than anything remotely serious. This is assault. I could sue you. I leaned back in my chair, completely unfazed. Go ahead, Karen. But just so you know, I've got security cameras. Want to watch the footage of you and your buddies ignoring my no trespassing signs? Because I'd be more than happy to show the judge. Her mouth opened and closed like a fish gasping for air. She'd been expecting me to fold, maybe even apologize. She wasn't prepared for the fact that I had receipts, and she knew it. Still, Karen wasn't the type to go down without a fight. Her lips pressed into a thin, angry line, and I could practically hear the gears turning in her head, searching for another way to make my life hell. You haven't heard the last of this, she snapped, spinning on her heel. You'll regret this. I watched her stomp back to her house, sent them. Karen was behind this, obviously. She had lost the legal battle, so now she was trying to get rid of my geese through brute force. Unfortunately for her, I was more than ready. I stepped off my porch, coffee in hand, and casually made my way down to the water's edge as the animal control officers prepared to do their work. Morning, gentlemen, I greeted, keeping my tone light. Can I help you with something? One of the officers, an older guy with a clipboard, cleared his throat. We've received multiple complaints about aggressive waterfowl on this property. We're here to remove the geese. I took a slow sip of my coffee, savoring the moment. Oh, I see. And do you have the proper authorization for that? The officer furrowed his brow. Sir, we're with animal control. We have the authority to handle nuisance wildlife. I smiled, pulling a neatly folded document from my pocket. That's interesting, because according to this, I handed him the paper. This lake has been officially recognized as a protected habitat for local waterfowl, which means any attempt to remove these geese without proper permits would be, well, illegal. The officer scanned the document, his frown deepening as he read. Behind him, the other workers exchanged uncertain glances. Where did you get this? He finally asked. Straight from the local wildlife reserve, I said smoothly. Feel free to call them. They'll confirm everything. The officer exhaled sharply, clearly irritated, but not willing to break the law on Karen's behalf. He muttered something under his breath before turning to his crew. Pack it up, guys. We're done here. I didn't even try to hide my grin as they loaded their gear back into their truck. Just as they were about to leave, Karen came marching over, her face twisted in outrage. Why aren't you taking the geese? She demanded. The officer, clearly over the entire situation, handed her the document I had given him. Protected habitat, ma'am. Nothing we can do. Karen snatched the paper, eyes scanning the words, her expression shifting from disbelief to pure frustration. You have got to be kidding me. I folded my arms, enjoying the show. Looks like the geese stay, Karen. She glared at me, jaw clenched so tight I thought she might crack a tooth. This isn't over, she hissed. I tilted my head. You sure? Because it looks pretty over to me. She let out an incoherent sound of frustration before spinning on her heel and stomping away. The moment she disappeared into her house, I turned back to my geese, who were watching the entire exchange with the same smugness I felt. Well, boys, I said, looks like you're officially protected. The geese honked in response, as if they understood their newfound status. I took another sip of coffee, looking out over my lake. Karen had tried everything: letters, threats, legal loopholes, even animal control, and still, She lost. She had underestimated me from the start, thinking I would just roll over and let her walk all over me. But this was my land, my lake, my geese, and now they were untouchable. Seemed so airtight. I watched as the confidence drained from his face, replaced by the realization that Karen had dragged him into a losing battle. He cleared his throat again, less sure of himself this time. We will need to review the specifics of the case further. I grinned. You do that. Karen wasn't ready to give up just yet. You can't just hide behind technicalities forever. I will find a way to get rid of those geese. I took a step closer, lowering my voice just enough to make sure she heard every word. Karen, this isn't a technicality, it's the law. And you can keep throwing lawyers, complaints, and fake rules at me all you want. But at the end of the day, this is my land, my lake. And those geese, they're not going anywhere. Her face flushed with frustration, but she had nothing left to say. Even her lawyer looked like he was regretting ever taking her call. With an angry huff, she turned on her heel and stormed away, leaving Mr. Thompson scrambling to keep up. As they disappeared down the road, I let out a satisfied breath. I knew Karen well enough to know she'd be back with another ridiculous attempt to make my life miserable. But that was fine, because no matter what she tried, I'd be ready. Mr. Thompson's confidence was crumbling fast, and I decided to twist the knife a little deeper. And while we're talking legal matters, I could always countersue for property damage. Your little gathering trashed my dock, wrecked my kayak, and who knows what else. I have all the footage, and I'd be more than happy to show it to a judge. Karen's smug demeanor wavered. You wouldn't. I flashed a grin. Oh, I absolutely would. And since we're on the subject of lawsuits, I might as well throw in trespassing charges. You ignored multiple clearly posted signs, and I'd say that's worth a courtroom discussion. Her lawyer cleared his throat, his earlier confidence crumbling. Perhaps we should, reconsider our strategy. Karen turned on him like a cornered animal. What? Number, you said we had a case. You told me we could win. Mr. Thompson adjusted his tie, now visibly uncomfortable. Well, given the new evidence, it appears the case may not be as strong as we initially assumed. Karen's hands clenched into fists, her face an alarming shade of red. Unbelievable. You're my lawyer. Do something. The lawyer cast me a glance that almost looked apologetic before firmly shutting his briefcase. I believe it's in our best interest to drop this matter. Karen looked like she was about to combust. Her mouth opened, closed, then opened again as she searched for anything, any last-ditch argument. But for the first time since this absurd war started, she had no moves left. She had lost, and she knew it. Leaning casually against the dock railing, I exhaled in satisfaction. Well, Karen, this has been fun, but I think it's time you admit defeat. Her glare burned with absolute hatred. This isn't over, I smirked. Oh, I think it is. She turned sharply and stormed away, her useless lawyer scrambling to keep up. I watched her retreat, savoring the sweetness of victory. As if on cue, the geese let out a synchronized chorus of honks, like a triumphant war cry signaling the end of battle. I glanced at them and nodded. You guys did good. In the weeks that followed, peace finally returned. Karen avoided me like the plague, and for the first time in what felt like forever, I could enjoy my lake without her constant interference. The geese remained the undisputed rulers of their domain, unbothered and undefeated. The rest of the neighborhood, entertained by the whole fiasco, seemed to accept that the geese were permanent residents. But the best part came about a month later when I spotted a moving truck parked in front of Karen's house. Standing on my porch, coffee in hand, I watched her march back and forth, barking orders at the movers with all the grace of a storm in human form. She looked absolutely miserable. I couldn't resist. Wandering over, I leaned casually against her mailbox. "Going somewhere?" Karen spun around, her glare sharp enough to cut glass. "I'm moving. Congratulations. You win." Feigning surprise, I raised an eyebrow. "Moving? But what about all your big plans for the neighborhood? Who's going to write those delightfully passive-aggressive letters about people's flower beds now?" She scowled. "I hope your geese turn on you." I chuckled. "Unlikely. They know exactly who the real enemy is." She let out an irritated huff, stomping up the truck steps. Moments later, the door slammed, the engine roared to life, and just like that, Karen was gone, rolling out of my life for good. Turning back toward my house, I felt lighter than I had in months. The lake was mine again. The geese were safe. And best of all, Karen was nothing but a bad memory. As I made my way toward the dock, one of the geese waddled up beside me, eyeing me expectantly. I crouched down, giving it a pat on the head. "We did it, buddy." The goose honked approvingly. "Life was good,"